All right. Well, I will pray, and then I'm going to give you. I have a smorgasbord here. I got 3 sermons. I have one I didn't finish 2 weeks ago in Romans. I have a little tease study here for the conference. This is a teaser, and then I've got eschatology here about what's going to happen next in this world. So I got 3 ways this can go tonight. I'm gonna move the, which first?
You look like you're in Las Vegas stealing cards. Or the shell game or whatever it is.
It can't come in handy. I used to play a lot of cards. When you watch the cards, you watch shuffles very, very carefully. Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you for tonight that we can come together and encourage one another in fellowship. Thank you for the way you've built the church for these purposes and many more. Tonight, may we be blessed from your word. May we be strengthened by our fellowship. May we bear one another's burdens. And that you just bless all that's going on tonight here with the children, the teens, the Hispanics, different adult classes, and those that are on Zoom. We thank you for that technology you've given us, and ask you to bless our time now in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm going to start with the teas first, kind of an appetizer, kind of before the main attraction. So next week we have our really our first counseling conference. This is Ed Bulkley's brainchild. He's been doing these for years. When they started attending here very early on, we talked about, wow, we need to have a conference. So this is something he's really put together. I've invited a friend, Jim Berg. He's invited a friend, Kevin Hurd. And we picked a theme we thought was a good theme, being addictions. And in the counseling world and in church life, you'd be surprised how many people have problems with sin just dominating, whether it's alcohol, drugs, prescription and non, whether it be pornography, whether it be whatever thing that just got some of our barrel. It's very real, very real. Sam ran across a guy even yesterday at the food bank that has some issues, and this conference is really geared for him specifically because he's got the issue. It's also geared for us who may not have the issue, maybe we've had the issue, but where we can get further equipped to help people. And we're really praying that at the end of this conference, the Lord will put a burden on hearts saying, you know what, we need to really take what we've learned for a lifetime of Christian living, and be more aggressive in trying to get the gospel out to our community using this tool of addiction ministries. And it's interesting talking to people. They're saying, yeah, I got a friend that this would be perfect for. I've got this or that. We all have someone we know. So if I went around the room here and if I asked you, do you know someone in your circle, but then it'd be a family member that has an addiction issue, probably wouldn't take you long to think of someone in your family or neighborhood or someone you worked with, and maybe you could create a pretty good list. And so the way the conference is geared, the Friday afternoon is for everyone. A little more flavor for pastors on that one. And the reason I say that, one of the sessions is on how to start a Freedom That Lasts charter, outreach, whatever you want to call it. And it's the nuts and bolts on starting an addictions ministry. Why we do it, how to do it, when to do it, just all that kind of stuff, materials that they use and so on. And so I'm inviting all the sister churches on the Front Range for their pastors and staff, and anyone they want to bring to especially come and get exposed to Jim Berg's Freedom That Lasts ministry. And he has started this in Greenville, of all places, and has a very, very effective Friday night ministry every week Friday. A lot of guys that come and ladies, quite a ministry there. So there's that one session, and the next session is for a breakout for men dealing with some of our issues, and then a session for the ladies. And in that, Marlo Bulkley and Elisa Sen will be talking about men who are addicted to ministry in a negative sense. Hello, Hezekiah. in a negative way. You have in Corinthians guide, there were several men that God commended for their addiction to ministry and that they were dedicated and devoted to serve God. But what they're going to address is guys, and I've fallen into this category, simply, where you make your ministry your mistress, where you put your ministry before your family, and that's always a temptation. And you can put your work before your wife. We can put anything, your hobby, whatever. So, Ed's fallen into that category. He'll humbly tell you that. I'll say the same, that there's been times where you just get your priorities wrong, or you just blame, or whatever you want to call it, sin. And they're going to tell, what's the Bible say about, taking heed unto yourself and then the ministry. So they're going to talk about some priorities, and they're going to deal with ministry challenges for pastors, wives, and people who are engaged in Christian work. So that afternoon's for anyone, everyone would benefit, but no question, there's a special flavor for pastors to hopefully launch an outreach like this, and to encourage pastor wives who may have no one else to turn to, where they're kind of feeling very boxed in a bad situation. And so the topic is for any woman, but has this pastoral flavor, Mrs. Pastoral flavor. That evening, the scope of the conference broadens out to just shotguns, just blasting whistles, So 30-06 and 270s in the afternoon, okay, 308s. In the evening, it's Remington 12 gauge, maybe a 16 gauge front end mix. It's just blast away. We're all going to get shell shocked. We're all going to come back with holes, And they're back-to-back sessions, one with Jim Berg and one with Kevin Hurt. So really a fantastic night. And we know a lot of people can't get off Friday afternoon, but if they can, we want them to come. But a lot of folks who do work can come to one or both of those sessions. And then the way we've geared Saturday is just one session after another. So some coffee, donuts to start the day, and then really from 9 to almost 1 o'clock, just session after session after session. And then we'll be done at that point. Matter of prayer, Brendan Dorsling is hoping to bring some people from the halfway house that he works with on Wednesday nights. And Sam, can you comment on that? What's it like down there? I know you've been there with him multiple times.
Usually there's, 8 to 10 guys, and, while they're in there, the promises of, oh, when I get out of here, I'm coming to Tri-City and I'm going to serve the Lord, and I'm going to get my life straightened out. Truth of the matter is, so far, no one has ever followed up on those promises, but you just can't give up, and you never know when you're going to reach that one that changes their life, and the Lord uses them in a mighty way. So in the meantime, you're sowing seeds.
Amen. So he's talked with the director of the halfway house, and she has given green light. This is an awesome opportunity. We fully support it. And so we're hoping we have some come with Brendan on next Saturday. I'm doing the last session. We come change the lineup. So Brendan's not sure if they could sit through a whole morning, Sam.
Yeah.
Probably one session. So the way we geared it, we flip-flop things. So I'm the last session. And it's not ideal. It's, you're tired, you're hungry, but whatever. We're big boys. We can make it. So I'm going to do the last session on alcohol addiction. And I want that group to come especially. I'm going to tell my story. I was a drunk, very much a drunk. And my family, generation after generation, on nearly both sides were drunks. So I'm going to share some personal things. I'm going to get into my teaser in a moment, but I'm going to do that message with those guys, and for everyone's benefit, as you'll see in a moment. And then I told Brendan I'd like to take all that he brings out for lunch, so they get to meet the pastor. We're very human. I want them to realize we're just sinners saved by grace. That's all we are. Praise God for that. And hopefully what Sam illustrated there is these guys make promises and then they just don't follow through. That's part of the problem. They don't follow through. And we're hoping that maybe we can build some relationships and then make that next step easier, better. And that's where if you guys see Brendan with some of these guys, don't go over there and say, oh, I hear you're a drunk and
we know why you're here.
We know why you're here.
Where you find that guy at?
Exactly. But relationships is everything with God and with one another. It's everything. And just in general, you see people visiting, you reach out and say hi, make them feel welcome, and where these guys, you know what, I'm not a church going guy, but that was pretty painless, those pretty nice guys. Maybe I could get some help there, So we want to do our best. So anyway, that's going to be Saturday. And then Sunday, we have a panel discussion to start the day at 9, and we'll be handing out 3x5 cards for questions on addictions, the Bible, whatever, and we'll field those questions and additional questions as time allows in a combined adult Bible fellowship. And then Jim Berg will, Kevin will speak in the morning, and Jim will complete the conference in the evening. So please come. We were actually given a good bit of money that invite people to come so they don't have to pay. So if there's any issues with cost, that is something that's an issue we'll definitely cover. And the only reason we charge for this, I hate charging for any of this, but we have books and notebooks and papers. We're trying to get to know how much materials do we need to order, and they're expensive, so we don't want to get an excess. We want to get close. And we're also, there's some food issues. So we're trying to get a good head count. And that's very hard because the way it works is about a day before the event is when people sign up. We get the phone call in the office that morning of the event, and they'll say, yeah, Pastor, I've just been meaning to get online and do this. Is it too late to come? Is it okay to come? It happens every time, which is fine. We always say the same thing. Yeah, by all means, come on. And then for old folks,
Hey,
you ask them to do it online, right, Paul? That's a stupid thing. They're not going to go online and do it. So we're trying to do things in the lobby, personal even. So we're trying to get a good turnout, and I can't say enough. These are really exceptional speakers. Jim Berg is really, really exceptionally good. He has written some outstanding books, some of the best books on sanctification. They've been written the last 50 years. Jim Berg's the author. So he's really good, and he's very direct. You're going to like him. He smiles. He has a tear in the eye, but it is going to be painful. I just want you to know it's going to be very, very, very. All right. So let me give you the teaser. So my topic is alcohol, and I'm going to talk about not all of them. Time won't allow, but this is 18 pages of all the drunks in the Bible. So I'm going to cover the reference, who was the drunk, read some of the passages, and then maybe the most important aspect, what are the consequences of these men, their choices of being drunk? So let's just sample it for a moment. So when you think of someone who's drunk in the Bible, there's 25 of them. So, and then maybe a few others, but what I've got here, 25 drunks. So tell me a drunk in the Bible, someone who's drunk. Doesn't have to be a drunkard every day.
Yeah. Abigail's husband.
Okay, so Nabal, whose name means fool. What's good about Nabal? What do we know good about Nabal, if anything?
He picked an excellent wife.
He's got a fantastic wife. How in the world did he get that kind of wife? And there's only one way. He paid for it. So that was an arranged marriage, and he paid for that girl. Abigail's a 5-star. So he has a great wife. He trashes her. He's not a good husband. But there's something favorable you could extract from the narrative about Nabal that a lot of drunks do not have going for them. What would that be?
He's wealthy.
Yes. He's a functional drunk. There are those who can do business, can do life, even though they drink all the time. And he's extremely wealthy. Maybe it was inherited. Maybe he made his money the old-fashioned way, inheritance, but he has wealth. Not a lot. Most drunks have financial problems. I would not bet, but probably if we interviewed 100 guys at the halfway house with their addiction problem, their lack of restraint, and that whatever that is, probably spun over to finances, and they have problems with finances. Wouldn't you say almost all of them? Yeah, with rare exception, that's the case. But there are probably people living within a stone's throw of this church that are functionally doing well with their businesses, making money, paying for $1 million home, but they have an addiction issue. So we have that guy now. He gets drunk, and the consequences of his choices were pretty severe. It brought about the judgment of God, brought about a heart problem. He had a heart attack and dies. Okay. Now, my stepmother was so unhappy. I loved her, but she was so unhappy. She says, I just basically hate my life, and I'm just going to keep drinking. She was a drunk, and I'm going to drink myself to death, and I can't wait to do it. I just want to be done. And she did it. She did it. And she brought on herself a self-inflicted health problem, went into a comatose state. We got the call here. I flew as fast as I could, hoping she'd come out of it. She never came out. She died. So that's a nasty consequence when she's my age. She was 63 now, but she's my age when she died. That's a very young. She's a very healthy, athletic type woman. Sad. Okay. Like, tell me another drunk.
Oh,
Yeah, poor Noah. You can't blame the guy. If you've been in a building project, man, it'll drive you to drink, or at least you attempt to do. 120-year building project? Are you kidding? Be gracious, the poor guy. All right. So here's a preacher of righteousness. And drunkenness is not righteousness, it's unrighteousness. So he heard his testimony. That's one of the consequences. Just with all that audience, he heard, that's a bad testimony. What if I got picked up this weekend? I don't plan to. And I get pulled over and I don't pass the test, and I get cited for DUI. And it's on the 6 o'clock news station, Channel 9. And there you are, you're watching the news, and hey, there's our pastor. And I come to church on Sunday, and I just say, look, folks, I'm sorry. I really had a bad week. I shouldn't have, but I did. Okay, and I won't do it again. And I haven't done it for 120 years. Okay. So I just had, would you all be gracious to me? Yeah, just a bad day. Okay. So this is, I don't think it was a habit of his, but what are some of the consequences of his drunkenness? They're really big. Give me a couple of the consequences.
Keep re-existing. He does the same thing twice.
It's
three
easy to
times,
repeat
or 4
sin.
times.
Sure, you sin now, you break down resistance. It's easy to repeat something. That can happen in general. Okay.
He's filled with that. You can't get rid of it.
Okay, that's potential with any of these issues. Yep, good. And with Noah, what would you say? What was the consequence of his poor choice?
Well, an embarrassing situation with his sons.
No, this is awkward. This is really awkward because where's Noah? Where's he sleeping it off at? Where is he?
Tent.
It's in his tent. Okay. Is that his best residence? Maybe not, but he's in his tent. And who finds him in his condition?
Was it Shem?
The sons.
Yeah.
The 3 boys.
Wasn't it one, and then he went and got the others or something?
Yeah, we'll get to that. There's 3
Okay,
boys.
yeah.
Okay, so the 3 boys.
Or Ham.
What in the world are they doing in his tent?
Yeah.
Why would you go in his tent? Why do they even have to look at the tent? Well, just guess. It doesn't say.
Check out
They're checking on Dad. This is so unlike Dad. Where is he? What time is it? Good night. And last night Dad was kind of, he was tanking it, man. He was drinking all that wine, man. I hope Dad's okay. This is unusual. So they were checking out on him. And when they check in on him, what do they find?
Hot day, had all his clothes off.
Yeah.
He has all his clothes off. How about Mrs. Noah? Doesn't say. He doesn't have any clothes on. So now your son comes upon their naked dad, who's all strung out and hungover and whatever. He's in a tent. He's not normal dad. So what does Ham do?
He goes and gets his brothers.
So Ham reveals the problem,
Yeah.
exposes the problem, proclaims the problem, love covers.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a father, this is your dad. And so Ham tells literally the whole world about it. Okay. Literally. And what did the other 2 boys do? Shem and Japheth. They come in, they walk in backwards,
Backwards, yeah.
they get a blanket, a big blanket, and they scream that, and they take care of the situation, but they don't look on their dad. They don't dishonor him. They try to cover. They try to, just do what they could to help move things forward in a good way, the best they could, in a very embarrassing, awkward situation. Right? And what happens with Ham? What's God's judgment on Ham? He's cursed. He's cursed. And he's going to be subservient to these other two. Of course, you have different groups of people around the world that are going to migrate from these three sons. We're all a descendant. If you're a Jew, you're probably from Shem. If you're from the eastern countries, whether Asian, India, Africa, that is typically your Ham, and your European is typically Japheth. Okay, so three directions, big blocks, not limited to one group of people. And I think there's only one human race. Okay, it's only one human race. We all go back to Adam, one human race. So, racism, what's stupidity? There's only one race. So if you don't like a different type of person, it's your race. You're mocking your race, your people. Okay. Anyway, so there's a blessing for the two boys, honor dad and cover, because love covers, and then there's a judgment on Cain, on Ham. That's a big one. That's a big consequence. And Noah set it up. He caused the stumbling block. He created the environment for this to happen. So I'm sure he felt bad. He opened the door for a son to fall. I don't want to do that. I don't want to trip my kids up. I don't want to see them cursed. I want to see them, thrive. And man, he just blew it. Okay. How about another drunk?
Lot.
There we go,
That's what I was
Lot.
trying
All right,
to
so
say.
now we got Lot. So you're gonna have three accounts in the Bible where someone is trying to get someone else drunk. So if anyone is trying to get you drunk, at least from a historic biblical view, it's always with bad intentions. Okay, always bad, always bad. So you know the story of the judgment upon Sodom, and Lot goes with his two daughters up into the hills to escape the wrath of God, the judgment of God. Mrs. Lot looked back, her heart was back there. She didn't want to leave. Her heart was in Sodom, and she became a salt shaker. So now we have Lot up in the mountains, and these two idiot girls. They're looking at their condition, very short-sighted. They're saying, "There's no men for us. We'll never. Our whole life's been destroyed, and if we don't, work out a plan, the human race is basically, whatever. Then they're not thinking real well. So the girls get dad drunk, and then the one sleeps with dad the one night, and then the next night they get dad drunk again. He's oblivious. He's just so drunk. Has a relationship with the other daughter, and from that you get two groups of people. What groups of people do you get?
Edomites.
Yeah, the Moabites and the Ammonites, the perennial enemies of Israel. Okay, bad problems. And you see drunkenness often is associated with nakedness. You're starting to see a pattern. And immorality, incest in this case. Okay. So who else tried to get someone drunk?
David.
The tribe of Uriah got him drunk, thinking, man, I've impregnated, and if I don't get him down there to that house off the battlefield and in with his wife, then I'm very vulnerable. And Uriah would not go with Bathsheba and have a relationship with her while he was away from his troops out who were fighting. He would not do it. Even drunk, he wouldn't do it. So not a good plan. Here's a guy trying ill intentions. David was nasty. What happens in the next chapter? So David's trying to get Uriah drunk and he succeeds. Mission is not accomplished. Next chapter, one of David's sons learns from dad. And Absalom tells his servants, I want Amnon drunk.
Yeah.
Let's get Amnon drunk. And then when he's drunk, he's unguarded. His guards drop. And when he's defenseless and stupid with his drunkenness, and that's what they did. So I've got 18 of these stories 25 of these stories of the consequences. And I can tell you my own consequences, my choices when I used to get drunk all the time. The guys that are coming will tell you that they're going to say afterwards, verbally or not, they're going to say, "Wow, he pegged me. That was my problem. Okay, this is what I did," and that's so it's a very, very powerful topic. And then what I'm going to try to do for my little tease here is to talk about alcohol in the Bible and what should be our philosophy in relating to this topic. What's the Bible say about it? What are the safeguards? What are the teachings related to this topic? And today, especially Christians have a lot of different views on this. So that'll be my topic. Okay, any questions on alcohol in the Bible?
I think one common thing about the guys down in the
Yep.
halfway house is it's always somebody else's fault. I was in with the wrong crowd, or somebody, it's always somebody else's fault. And never taking responsibility for what you've done is huge. I mean, that's what I told Ben yesterday out here at the food bank. At least he's admitted he's got a problem. If you never admit I got a problem, you're never going to solve it. So if you can admit the fact that it's me, I'm the one that's got to deal with it. So
Huge. That human nature to shift blame right from the beginning. The devil made me do it. My wife made me do it. I mean, it's always shifting. I admire the person, not that when they fall, we all do it, but that person who can say, "You know what? I'm going to own up to it. I messed up. I sinned. This was my choice. It's not my dad's fault. It wasn't because of my wife. It was me. I made this choice and I regret it. And I truly confess it to God. I want to forsake him." That person finds mercy of the Lord. So, questions on alcohol. This is the teaser one. Any questions, thoughts on anything about the topic?
well, the only thing I can say about that topic is, as a 17-year-old that joined the Navy and, all that stuff's out there. I made a choice not to do it. And all I can say though is that by the grace of God, there go I. You could have made the choice the other way.
Sure.
But praise the Lord.
So how in the world did you withstand all that pressure, Sam, in that context? That's a tough one.
Really,
how did you do that?
at that age, it really was. I was raised in a Christian home, and for the first time in my life, I was faced with the fact: is this faith that I have mine, or was it my parents? And it's my faith, I guess. I just said, this is my faith, and I'm going to live that direction.
So were you teased? The guys constantly getting on your case?
Well, yeah, you're certainly.
Yep. How'd that work? How's that look?
Ridiculed on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're respected.
Yeah.
They're always trying to get you to go along with them, but when you won't, it's like there's a respect that they hold for you.
It's huge. I think of Mickey Mantle. Some of you younger guys don't know who he is. Mickey was a good-looking Yankee, and he was a phenomenal baseball player. Terrible drunk, terrible womanizer. And there's one occasion he was so drunk that the next day he was just still drunk, and he didn't start that game. And then, of course, they have to cover for him, saying, "Well, Mickey's sick today." And they don't tell you what he's sick of. Yeah. He's drunk. And in that game, late innings, 7th, 8th, 9th inning, I forget who, was it Bear, whoever the coach was, said, "Mickey, can you find home plate? I'd like to put you in as a pinch hitter, And Mickey, I don't know if I can find my bat." And he stumbled out the home plate, and he hit it was the furthest home run he'd ever hit. It was 500 plus feet. 500 plus feet. I mean, just killed it. Just drunk still. So there's a guy on the team, his name was Bobby Richardson, born again guy. And they all got on Bobby's case. He's the goody two shoe, just all the junk. "Come on, Bobby, you can join us. You don't even have to drink. Come on, Bobby, come on." And Bobby held his ground. But what happened, one by one, those Yankees, as they came into the latter parts of their life, one by one, they called Bobby Richardson. When it came to crisis, Bobby Richardson, every time. And Mantle on his deathbed, his friend said, "Who would you like to see?" He said, "I need to get Bobby Richardson needs to come. I need to see Bobby Richardson." And Richardson came to his deathbed, gave him the gospel again, and Mickey Mantle got saved just before he died. So
Really?
Mantle got saved, I mean, the 12th hour.
Wow.
Fantastic, I mean, genuine, I mean, and he regretted not getting saved earlier, regretting not getting saved earlier. So, yeah, wow.
I go along with Sam there. I was in the Navy also and took my stand for the Lord. And a couple of instances, one time something came up. I don't remember all the details at this moment, but a couple of guys got me alone and said, they called me Duke. I was the Protestant lay leader on that ship.
The what leader?
Protestant.
Okay, gotcha.
We didn't have a chaplain.
Right, gotcha.
We had a Catholic lay leader, and I was the Protestant lay leader. But we would have services on Sunday and different things like that. But they came and got me alone and said, Duke, if I get busted over this ship is not big enough for both of us. And but one by one, I led several people to the Lord on the ship. But whenever they got a Dear John letter, they'd come and see Deacon Duke. If one of their dad died or something like that, they'd come and see Deacon Duke. And so it was a wonderful ministry, but yeah, had to take your stand.
Yeah, not easy. So we're going to cover that topic. Christians have different views. One agreement for anyone, pretty much common, is drunkenness is sin. So whether you drink moderately or not, all parties agree drunkenness is wrong. And when it comes to this topic, there's a lot of guidelines and a lot of warnings attached to this subject that are not attached to other topics. For instance, I like cranberry pomegranate juice.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
There's not one Bible verse that says be careful of that. I just want to warn you, if you're drinking pomegranate cranberry juice, here's the problems. There's not all these warnings. So this topic, buyer beware. There are warnings everywhere on this one. Okay, big time. So teaser, please come.
I was not a believer at the time, and I just ran with the rest of the scum.
Sure you do. Yeah. So
In
anyway,
Sam's name.
this is an interesting topic and challenge you to study it out. So it's okay. Any other question? We'll switch gears. This is a smorgasbord tonight. I've been working on this week, so it's very fresh. So any other thoughts?
It seems like in a younger group anymore, I hear, well, wine's fine. It's easier to drink wine instead of hard alcohol. But it's still all alcohol. Still get you drunk, but it's just even people you wouldn't believe go that way, from the Christian schools and so forth, or colleges. It's like, well, they have their circles that it's just that way. And then you run into some people at work that say, well, every few months I got to stop drinking to make sure I'm not a drunk. It's kind of like that operational drunk or a functioning drunk, but just to make sure I'm not a drunk. So I have to stop for about 30 days, make sure I'm not on that. So it's like, if that's the issue, then why go there?
Yeah. There's definitely shifts going on in at least American church history. So European history, church history, wines and beers were not uncommon in any branch of Christendom. Just quite frankly, that's pretty much rare exceptions. American church history, the Bible-believing Christians, pretty much from at least the last 100 years, not the last 20, but let's say going back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, 1900s, it was a teetotaling bunch. Okay, you have Billy Sunday who would preach damnation on alcohol and shut bars down all across the country. Bob Jones Sr., Billy Sunday, this guy's they railed on it and they shut stuff down. We actually have what's called the prohibition. I mean, it came about this country from preaching. So you had that, and then you had the liberal branch of Christianity were the drinkers. You know, my branch I grew up with was nicknamed the Episcopalians. Okay? So the Episcopalians were the Episcopalians. They were very heavy drinking. You know, I had a lot of Catholic friends and Catholic roommates, and we would get drunk together. And they would say their Hail Marys and go to the confessional, but they would all say the same thing. They'd say, "Well, I'm a Catholic, you know that, and yeah, I do get drunk." But he says, every good Catholic gets drunk. They would always say that. This is just what good Catholics do, and we have a confession booth, and we get it settled. So usually in American church history, the Episcopalians and the elements of the Catholic, not all of each, were the drinking, and the rest of us was, don't even think of it. Okay, the last 20 years, what Brother Wright has mentioned, now it's sweeping all the movements. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's creeping from the liberal to the evangelical to the most conservative branches where we would find ourselves. It's totally infiltrated. And it is one of the biggest issues. What happens is these kids who grow up in our kind of homes, they have no exposure to it typically. They don't see all the consequences, and they're going into this thing. And the Bible compares this stuff to a serpent that bites, and there's a sting to this stuff. There's poison to this stuff, and we're seeing young people are in just landslide into this stuff naively, not knowing what they're messing with, and don't have the wherewithal to balance anything.
And it's gotten worse with drugs. I mean, drugs
Huge drugs.
takes a chemical reaction to your body.
Huge drug, add the drugs, and then also the alcohol. When you compare alcohol in the Bible to alcohol today, it's apples and oranges, because wine was very expensive, and they diluted it. So if you drank wine, it was 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio. So it affected your kidneys more than your brain. Okay, so it was very low alcohol content. Okay, today we supercharge the proof. This 150 proof or whatever. Why are you jacking it up? Well, I want to get the effect. I want to get drunk. I want the effect quickly. So that's apples and oranges. There's strong drink in the Old Testament, but nothing like the 100 proof and 150 proof and all the stuff that's been stimulated here by our processes. The other issue is, okay, first century, I'm riding my donkey home from my wife and I had a spat. Okay, I went out and had a few drinks with the guys. What's the big deal? And I got a little loopy and I fell off my donkey. And the donkey ran home, and my wife's upset because I'm not here. I get it. So I'm going to be in the doghouse. And I got bruised when I fell off the donkey, right? What's our culture? You're driving that Beamer home at 150 miles per hour. You're all over the highway, and you jam it into a tree, or you do worse, you T-bone someone, you kill someone else. That's apples and oranges. That's totally apples and oranges. So I'm going to do some of these comparisons. So at the end of the day, each of you are priests. You have to make your own decisions. And you've got to study it out for yourself. That's why I just want to give information. You got to study it out. You got to study it out. What's right for you? What's biblical? You've got to make those applications. But it's becoming one of the most glaring problems in our churches. And the problem is the drunkenness part of it, where people can't control it, and they're not doing well with it. I won't disclose people I'm counseling with, but you'd be very surprised. The next generation, how many of these kids are drunks now? They can't get off it. They can't get off it. It just breaks your heart. So my son Jim kind of is called on to pull guns out of guys' mouths, his Marine friends. And one guy, I think twice he's pulled a gun off him. Okay. I've kept guns in my closets at the house for months because guys were going to take their life. They get drunk, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. Okay. And probably you and I have all been tempted to do it. I know we have, to various degrees. But you get drinking, you get stupid, and Satan's playing on your mind. You can do some really dumb stuff. So, okay. Anything else on this topic? I'm going to have fun with it. Hopefully you'll be here for that. Is this a good tease? How many are coming in? Let's switch gears. Let's go to prophecy for a moment. This is dynamic change. You want to be sober. All right. So right now we've got a war developing in the Ukraine. So, is this the end? Are we that close to a rapture? We could be. We always think that. But in our minds, a lot of us think we believe it theologically, intellectually, but I don't really believe it's going to happen in my lifetime or today. So we kind of push it down the road a little bit. Thinking, well, it'd be great if it did. But with the circumstances we're looking at, it's the best shot I've seen in my lifetime. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. I would have
Getting
never
better or
guessed.
worse.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that these circumstances would be seen so quickly unfolding. So what I wanted to share is a couple prophetic things, just so you guys, Fox News can't tell you this, okay? Only the Bible can, right? So there's gonna be certain things that Paul says, brethren, I don't want you to be ignorant. I don't want you to not understand some of these things. And the Bible is replete with, prophecy. 1 out of 4 verses is prophecy. And there's a lot left that relates to the second coming of the Lord. So internationally, the pieces that aren't on the table right now, that I'll just share. One piece is the story ends in Israel. Just remember that. The story ends in Israel. So if we're ready to wind into fulfillment of prophecies internationally, as relates especially to the tribulation, the rapture precedes it. But it all ends in Jerusalem. It all ends in Israel. It all ends in the Valley of Megiddo. So wherever these turns and twists and bends, if this is the kind of the beginning of it, that's where it will end. Okay. So your news media is going to say, well, this may, they may go to Poland or this or that. Okay, they may do that. Russia may do that. China may go to Taiwan. But ultimately, it's going to be the kings and their armies all converging on Israel. So that's where it leads to. And so you have to go from where we are today to that convergence. The Bible describes the steps between A and Z. So there is a progression of thought on how the thing unfolds. So just keep in mind, this is where it's going to. World War I, the most important consequence of it was the Balfour Declaration made by the British to say that the Jews should have some land. And they made provision for that to happen. Jews did not jump on it, not many. And so World War II got the Jews, those surviving Jews, many of them, into the land. And then World War III prepares the nation of Israel to finally in faith to accept the Messiah. So that's what the final war is all about, the conversion of the remnant of Israel and the conversion of others, but it's all about conversion. So just keep that in mind. You're not going to hear that on Fox News, okay? Or news, whatever news sources you watch. And they're all very human. They're all very human. Okay? So the second thing the secular world's not going to be looking at right now is the Bible describes implicitly and explicitly that things are going to get unbelievably complex with these international relationships, where no one has an answer or a plan, or they don't even know what they're doing. So how thorough do you think Russia's plan is right now? Maybe more thorough than we realize in their relationship with China. Who knows what all that looks like behind closed doors. But right now, you're seeing nations saying, I'm not sure, when you boil it down, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing or how to solve the problem. And there's probably some relationships, again, behind closed doors where there's some stuff going on that probably would mortify us. But basically, you're going to have a condition where it's very, very complex, screaming for someone just to have the voice of reason to throw out a solution that will please all the parties. All the parties. And right now, I don't think that's our president.
What?
What day is it?
What day?
Where am I? Where'd he go? He was just sitting right here.
So I'm not seeing the solution guy yet I don't see that guy on the horizon. All right. I don't think he's out there right now being interviewed on channel, whatever. But we know that the Antichrist is that guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you study, when you go to Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 9, and Daniel chapter 11, the three key passages on Antichrist, you're going to learn that this guy is a master orator, gifted speaker, and he's brilliant. And why is he so wise and so incredibly insightful? Because he's energized by a very powerful source. Okay. And that source who's going to energize him is also setting the stage for him to step into it. So he's matching, the glove with the hand. So what you've got here is this incredible individual, and he's going to turn on his heritage spiritually. So whatever he is, when it comes to his family religion, he's going to flat deny it, apostatize from it. So if he's a Christian, he's going to apostatize from it. If he's a Jew, whatever. He also does not have a normal attraction to females. Does that mean he's homosexual? I wouldn't say that go that far, it may be, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't go that far. That's not his love. But Daniel does tell you what his love is. It's war. His God is war, God of war. So what's really clever about this guy, he's going to step into this vacuum and come up with some solutions that's going to appease people. And he's going to just be elevated. Now, this happens after the rapture, and it happens warp speed. This guy comes into play, and he's got it. He's got it. And the result of it is going to be peace. And right now, there is not peace. It doesn't look like there's going to be peace in any direction anywhere. Okay. So this guy is this good that he creates a result that's peaceful amongst the nations. And he has the capacity through force to maintain that peace for 3.5 years, or try to. Okay. So this guy, no one's going to talk about the Antichrist, but he's the guy, he's more feared than the king of the north, whoever that is, whether that's Putin or whoever that is. So the most feared guy, humanly speaking, is Antichrist. That's the guy that's going to have the power from Satan to do the most damage. He's your guy. Now, we don't have to worry about him. We're not going to be here. But you're not going to hear a lot of talk about Europe. You're not going to hear about a guy coming out of the revived Roman Empire, out of one of those NATO countries or EU nations, who's that guy. But he's coming. If this is it, he's out there. And he won't be manifested to us. 2 Thessalonians 2 makes it very clear. He's unveiled once the rapture takes place. And only then can he do his agenda. Okay. So that's a piece. Now, the other piece that you're not going to hear as much about initially, but will probably become more of the news cycle, is one other nation. So I've mentioned some nations. So Russia is going to, I envision Russia doing some of their dirty work. And if this plays out with rapture, Antichrist comes out and kind of stops this thing, and there's a peace treaty. Okay, there's a big peace treaty. And it's involving a lot of players, not just Israel. Okay, so there's gonna be peace, and there'll be a temporary lull, and that's when the king of the north says, "Okay, we need food desperately. We need money, and we have an opportunity here under these conditions, because in those conditions, Israel, amazingly, disarms himself." Can you imagine? I can't, not today, but that happens. That's how good the Antichrist is. Okay. You look at these European countries who said, "I'll disarm," they get hooked up with the oil or whatever. Germany, for instance, are you kidding? You throw away your protective measures for what?
That's what Ukraine did.
Exactly what Ukraine did. So it's ridiculous, crazy.
They disarmed themselves.
They disarmed themselves for what? A peace, an agreement. Stupidity. Okay. So what's going to happen is that king of the north is going to say, "Now's the time." And he has a direct line to Israel through Syria, through Togarmah, Turkey, and through Syria. And right now, Putin has Syria's in their back pocket. So they've got the direct line to make a move towards Israel, a very powerful move. So that's going to happen. That happens, I think, right after the rapture, before the mid-trib part.
After the rapture, the whole world will be in chaos.
Tremendous
So
chaos.
they'll need somebody to put the things back together.
I think the Antichrist is the one that does that. He's the initiator, and he has 10 countries in Europe that work with him on this to start. And there's a couple of those countries that they get into it, and then they realize, you know what, I don't like this deal. And 3 of those 10 nations resist it and say, we want out. And Antichrist says, yeah, you'll have out all right. You just got assimilated. So 3 countries will go down quickly. He'll flex his muscle there with a smile. But yeah, there's a vacuum created. So now, but there's one place I haven't talked about. So when you study Revelation, what are the epicenters, the geographic epicenters that the book of Revelation talks about? So it starts off beautifully in Patmos and ends in paradise. So that's a beautiful theme, from Patmos to paradise. That's your trajectory. Good one for us. So where are the countries in the tribulation that are literally specifically mentioned?
Rome.
So Rome is one. Okay, so Revelation 13, Rome. So you're not hearing much about Rome right now, are you? Kind of quiet.
No.
I mean, really.
Other
Well,
than
World War II, where was Rome? What did Rome do in World War II? They enabled Mussolini. They played.
Yeah, they had a foot in both camps is what they
They
did.
really did. They were played. They were like you're saying. Satan just wreaked havoc in the churches for the religious leaders. It breaks my heart to see those German churches with Nazi signs at the altar, at the communion tables. That's so sad. So how did that ever happen? Well, they just used the church, and of course Martin Luther was anti-Jew, so he didn't help any. So they just you have more, whatever. So what happened? There's one country though. So Rome is one, but that's only a small package there. Big things, but only small references.
Germany and Russia.
That's the Russia passage. That's the Ezekiel passage. So walk through Revelation. Okay, walk through Revelation. There's one nation. There's more verses about it, and it is just line after line after line. So chapter 18.
Gog and Magog? No.
Chapter 18
18.
is Iraq.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's referring to Iraq.
Babylon.
Okay, it's Babylon, right.
Babylon is Iraq.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. So study chapter 18 of Revelation. So chapter 17, you have what is called spiritual religious Babylon. Chapter 18 is economic national Babylon. It is Iraq. And something transpires in Iraq. And that's the thing I'm watching for right now. I'm not going to see Antichrist. I know that. But if this thing's really ramping up to play it all out, several things have to happen. We got to get to a peaceful condition. That's crazy. And there has to be a temple built in Jerusalem. So that could happen before the rapture, just after it, before, right after. But watch Iraq. Watch what happens in Iraq. Yeah.
Aren't they building up Babylon right now?
They've been trying to build up Babylon.
Yeah.
The infrastructures and everything there?
They're subtly, quietly, you don't hear much because the distractions are everywhere else.
Hussein tried it.
Oh,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that was a big project of his with
Well,
that
you
crazy
think-
hill with the spiral thing. That was
Well,
Yeah.
he thought he believed in reincarnation. He believed literally that he was the reincarnated Nebuchadnezzar.
yeah. Didn't he think he was the whatever it is, the third
Mahdi.
Mahdi or whatever it is?
He had high ambition that he was.
Yeah.
Remember who destroyed Israel and their temple? It was the Iraqis. We call Babylonians. Okay, so the greatest Babylonian is Nebuchadnezzar. Okay,
Mm.
so if you're an Iraqi, your hero, and Saddam's hero was Nebuchadnezzar, because Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Jews in their temple, and that was Saddam's mission. He wanted to see that. He wanted to repeat history. Okay, and he was very clever about that. And he slammed. But watch the Iraq thing. Watch the Iraq. And what happens there? What's that chapter discuss? What happens there? So you have an incredible prophecy in Zechariah, and it's a picture of a woman in this
In this jar.
in a jar,
Yeah.
And it's an unclean bird,
Right.
a dirty bird,
Stork or something.
stork,
Yeah.
a dirty bird, and this dirty bird's being carried from point A to Shinar. What is Shinar?
Shinar, I think, is Babylon, isn't it?
Is Babylon.
And it's and the starting point
Stud-
is Rome, isn't it?
Study where the starting point is.
I think it's Rome.
So let's have fun with that one. So go back to Zechariah, we can read it. So it's moving a dirty bird from one location to another location. And then Revelation talks about that dirty bird. And it's describing an economic center that's going to be built that's going to attract the investment of the world.
There's a lot of money in the Middle East, and with money comes power.
It does. And who leads the charge to rebuild it? Who has interests and has money and would like to invest in this?
What the Saudis doing?
So it could be possibly them.
Chinese.
Yeah, watch China on this one.
Yeah.
Watch China on this one. Because what it does, remember the kings of the East in Revelation, they come from the East and they come across the Euphrates. That's dry. Okay. So what's that mean? That means you can come in from the Mediterranean, not a good idea. They will. You're a sitting duck. You can come in from Europe, you can come down from Turkey to Israel. Africa, there is a king of the south, Daniel talks about, is a player, but nothing like the kings of the east. So if you're going to do a land attack with 200 million soldiers, where do you bring them in on? You need a launching pad. You need a center. You need access. And when that river dries up, now the bridges are always the problems. When we try to help Iraq or whatever we were doing there, the bridges were horrific battles on those bridges over the Euphrates. So you're not going to hear much on the Iraq buildup of a World Trade Center that's going to have universal approval and investments, where it becomes your Hong Kong, like Hong Kong used to be. Have any of you been in Hong Kong? You know what I'm saying, the lights and all the bells and whistles and the sales center. That's just, you put that on steroids, Hong Kong on steroids. That's what that Babylon becomes. No one's talking about that. So the pieces, we're watching pieces.
And the way that all can happen is with cryptocurrency.
Absolutely.
That can happen so fast.
Yes. So let's say the currency changes. So right now, what is the issue we're concerned about on the currency issue? Inflation, but what else are we concerned about right now? China.
The deletion of the dollar.
Yeah, everything's based on the American dollar.
Oh, the dollarization, right? So
it is.
Crypto is going to be an alternative.
And right now it's on the table. I don't know if you guys know that's right now on the table. With who? With the Saudis and with the oil people.
Yeah.
So right now, if that currency change, what does that do? That basically throws us into a tailspin. It puts them in the driver's seat. And then they got it. They got it, right?
It'll happen overnight.
I mean, just like that. So now you've got the money, you got the driver, and you got your partners, and now you invest in Iraq. And now you have access to an ocean, you have access to the crescent moon to get over to any part you want. So just watch that in my mind, I'm just watching pieces. If this is the big show for right at the end of it, there's several things that ramp up.
But all of that is pretty sophisticated, so that's going to take some time. That can't happen overnight.
So that cryptocurrency could flip overnight.
Yeah, but
we saw that in Vietnam. We
this
saw
is
that in Vietnam.
substantial
One
amount
day
of
this is the currency, the next day it's something else. I mean,
Let me read what,
flip it overnight.
let's read this, because this does take whatever, is this a one-day project?
Yeah.
Or 10 years? Watch what this says. Let's just read it and we'll pray together here. So let's go to the 18th chapter, Revelation. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Now, I'm going to just take a stop and give you context. Chapter 16, the last vile judgment is pronounced, chapter 16, in the context of Armageddon. And the final judgment is dropped there. okay, in chapter 16. I said this before, 17 and 18 are parentheses. So John is writing through these judgments. He comes to this vile judgment. He stops, says, pause, just stop. Parentheses. I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to talk about the tribulation just a little bit more. I want you to know about this mystery Babylon, the whore based in Rome, and the role that false prophet plays in chapter 17. And then I want to talk about the economic center that seems to be the crown jewel of the tribulation. We don't talk about it, and that's Iraq. Okay, and then after chapter 18, it gets right back in to Jesus coming at the Revelation, chapter 19. So he's talking about the tribulation, and he cried, verse 2, chapter 18, verse 2, with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, literally demons, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So that is basically the prophecy being fulfilled from Zechariah. I'm trying to find what chapter in Zechariah. I didn't prepare this. So someone see a cross reference to Zechariah. If you see a Zechariah around there, this is the dirty bird that Zechariah predicts. Okay. No, let's try this. Give me 1 second. Ezekiel. That's Zechariah. So let me just get to the dirty bird so you know what I'm saying here. Zechariah thinks in the Old Testament. Okay. Get to the dirty bird. Here we go. So the dirty bird is in chapter 5. I'll just read it. Then the angel that talked to me went forth and said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes and see what it is that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? He said, This is an ephah. It's an ephah basket. They goeth forth. He said, Moreover, this is their resemblance for all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sits in the midst of the ephah. And he said, her name is Miss Wickedness. This is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mount thereof. So this woman shut up in the ephah basket. Then lifted I my eyes and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings. For they had wings like the wings of a stork. The stork's an unclean bird from a Jewish kosher viewpoint. And they lifted up the ephah basket between the earth and the heaven. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, Where do these bear the ephah? Where are they going? And he said unto me, To build it a house in the land of Shinar. That's Iraq. Okay. And it should be established and set there upon her own base. So back to Revelation 18. Zechariah has predicted there's going to be miswickedness, and all the symbols used there are the symbols of commerce, economy, measurements. So you're going to have a building built on a base that is demonically inspired. Demonically, it's unclean. This is has a nasty origin, has nasty motivation. And Revelation picks up on that and talks about this city, Shinar, or Babylon, that's now fallen, and it had become this dwelling place of demons. Okay, so what we're seeing in the tribulation, there's going to be a building built in Babylon, demonically sourced and empowered, built, and it's going to come down. It will fall. It will be judged. At the end of the tribulation, it's judged. And that's what Revelation 16 talks about, is the fall of Babylon. Okay. Now, for all nations, so 4 is always an explanation. Here's an explanation. Because all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So what we see here is all nations are going to invest in this project, the rebuilding of Iraq, the rebuilding of Babylon, the rebuilding of whatever this World Trade Center is, this marketplace, international market. And then John says, okay, if you're alive in the tribulation and you're a believer, good night, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. So John is saying to tribulation saints, do not play any games with this building, with this economy, with this investment. Don't invest, don't partake, don't be complicit, don't participate, stay away, avoid, separate. Why? Because her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Remember her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And the cup which she hath filled to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she says in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Just arrogant, smug. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judges her. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing far off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, from 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her for her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. And then the merchandise is described here in great detail, verse 12, verse 13, and verse 14. The fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more. The merchants of these things, verse 15, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And he goes on to describe all these no mores. To be no more music, no more sounds, no more light, no more whatever. It goes on through it. And finally, and in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. So there's a lot of history tied in with this. So when you see this described, that's not today. That's not what you see in Iraq. But it has to become that. And that's international. All nations invested in the ships. We just flew over California whatever time ago, and all those ships were out there in the bay. And what in the world are they doing? They were all Chinese ships, and they just couldn't get the port. They weren't letting them in to unload. I mean, just ships and ships. And so watch Iraq. I think there'll be it would not surprise me, a change in currency and a massive buildup of a city and world trade there in a neutral site. Have at it. What do you think? Watch this one. We could start seeing it. So how long does it take to build that? A little bit. I don't know how long is that, months, years? But that's pretty high profile. Any questions? We'll pray. What do you think, Hezekiah?
It's a pretty heavy topic.
This doesn't fit in your geology. Studies well, huh?
I probably should go to the Romans passage. Hezekiah, one little nugget. The nugget out of Romans, if we ever got to it tonight, was Romans 7. And it talks about the law. The law is holy and it's good. There you go. The law is good. Why? Because it shows that we're sinners. And when we see that we need a Savior. It's good. It's holy. We all need a Savior. I'm so glad. I know all of you. It's so good to know we know the Lord. I'm so glad we know the Lord.
Amen.
And praise God for that. Can you imagine living right now without the Lord? If things get worse, can you imagine the confusion, the fear, the totally unknown, being so easily duped and deceived and tossed to and fro with every story out there? So I would just say for us, we have a fabulous opportunity to share the gospel with people. So here's our hope. It's not in the White House. It's not in this treaty. It's in Christ. And here's our hope. It's in the Lord. So, well, why don't we get a couple guys together and let's spend some time praying. Mr. Wright, do you have 5 minutes to join us?